Hi writers, I'm C. I'm a developmental editor of fiction, and if you're curious about what my job is like today, I'm going to talk to you about one part of it, which is making a book map. Book maps are hardcore structural reverse outlines of your story. They're done in Excel, and they're meant to give you a broad brush overview of your main plot and all of your subplots. I like book maps because they also help me track data throughout the manuscript. It can be difficult for me to tell an author, hey, look, this is long, or this needs to be cut. The thing a book map can do for me is it lets me show an author concretely why the length of a certain scene might be negatively impacting a chapter, as an example. When I do a book map in Excel, I start with a few standard columns, chapter number, obviously, and then scene number. Not just the scenes that the authors designate through scene breaks, but I'll designate my own scenes. We have word count in the scene, we have total word count for the story so far, we have what percentage of the way through the book we are at the end of that scene, the point of view character for the scene, the location, and then we get into the good stuff. I do a description, a short description, maybe 4 to 5 lines of what's in that individual scene. After that, I'll add a bunch of different columns tracking subplots or ideas or world building that I'm interested in. So if I feel like a character arc is a little wonky, I'll track it. If I'm wondering to myself, I don't feel like the exposition on this magic system is done very well, I'll track it. If I'm interested in a romantic arc, I'll track it, and each of these things will be tracked in separate columns. Often, those columns will be left blank because that arc won't be a part of that scene. But when all said and done, I'll have a completely filled-in book map, chapter by chapter, scene by scene. Then with my additional columns, you'll be able to see if you zoom out all the way in a broad brush overview where all of that information hits the page throughout the book. They're tremendously helpful for me as an editor to try to identify where we have bloat or where we have sack or slag within a manuscript, or even why a particular character arc doesn't feel like it's resolving the way that it ought to be resolving. Then from a writerly perspective, my clients can look at this book map I did, which is functionally a reverse outline, and match it up against what they thought they wrote. Because writers, what we think we wrote and what's actually on the page, even after draft 3 or 4, is sometimes a little bit different. Got any more questions about book maps or the process of developmental editing? Hit me up in the comments. I would love to answer them for you. Hi friends, this is Tips from a Fiction Editor, and here's your requested video on book maps. So on the left-hand side, you can see that we have our basics, chapter and scene number, word count, cumulative word count, percentage of the way through the book, and location. Then I write a description on what happens in each individual scene. Finally, on the right-hand side, you see I've got all of my individual arcs or world-building details that I'm tracking in these columns. If you're wondering, one thing you can use a book map to do is figure out a place where your scene is a little bit thin or not doing double duty. You see all these blank boxes? Not always a good. Writers, you wanted to know more about book mapping, so I'm here with another example of what I use it for. Hi, I'm C, I'm a fiction editor, and this is the first half of a book map. The basics are up here. Things like chapter number, scene number, word count, cumulative word count, percentage of the way through the book, point of view, if applicable, and location. The what happened column is pretty basic. It's a really quick summary of what went down in that specific scene. I have to make sure I only put down what's on the page and that I don't make any assumptions. Gotta make sure I'm tracking what the author actually wrote, not what I think they wrote. Here's where it gets spicy, tracking individual arcs. With character arcs, I'll track every single time their arc advances, anytime they express a motivation, or anytime they have a specific goal. This helps me track how their arc progresses and whether and how it resolves in a story that's really complicated. Plus, it's a really great way to see whether or not your character is driving your action. Got questions about book maps? Let me know in the comments.